February of '89, when the ice on Lake Superior was thick enough to bear a loaded wagon but not thick enough to hold a man's shame, I saw something that'll haunt me till my dying breath. I'm Elwood Pike, 65 now, bones creaking louder than timber in a windstorm. And I'm going to tell you about the morning I watched a father sell his own daughter naked by the frozen riverbank. Barefoot in snow that could kill a man in 20 minutes, she stood there, Marjorie Dalton, silent as a grave, while 50 loggers circled like wolves, and her daddy screamed, "Take her! Mute as a fence post, but she'll warm your bed." 40 years old I was then, hollow as a rotted stump, dead inside since my Emma passed. Had a choice right there: walk away like I'd done from life itself, or step into that ring of hell and do something that mattered. By dawn, either we'd be free or buried 6 feet under frozen ground. Here's how it went. The mornin' bell hadn't even rung when I heard the shoutin'. Walked down from my shack 3 miles out, axe over my shoulder like always, boots crunching through snow that squeaked. It was so damn cold. Figured maybe a fight broke out. Loggers get ornery when the winter drags on and the whiskey runs low. But when I rounded the corner by the timber dock, I saw something that made my gut twist like green wood in a fire. Silas Dalton had his daughter by the hair, dragging her through the snow like she was a sack of grain that had gone bad. And Marjorie, 19 years old, been mute since she was a little thing, she wasn't fighting him, just taking it. Arms crossed over her chest, barefoot in February cold that could freeze spit before it hit the ground, wearing nothing but a torn nightdress that didn't cover half what it should. 50 men stood in a circle, loggers I'd worked beside for 15 years. Good men, or so I'd thought. And they were laughing, calling out like it was some kind of auction at the county fair. $5! Hell, I'll give you a cord of pine timber. She any good for cooking Silas? Who cares? Just look at her. Each voice uglier than the last. And Silas, drunk since midnight by the smell rolling off him, he was eating it up, grinning like the devil himself. That's right, boys. Step right up. She's mute as a fence post, but she'll warm your bed just fine. Strong back, young enough to bear you sons. What am I bid? I stopped at the edge of the circle, axe still on my shoulder, and something inside me, something I'd buried 15 years ago when I lowered Emma into the ground with our stillborn boy in her arms, that something started crawling back to life. Felt like rage, felt like shame, felt like 40 years of loneliness screaming to get out. Marjorie's eyes met mine for just a second, brown eyes deep as pine wells. And in 'em I saw what I'd been carrying all these years. Helplessness, the look of someone who'd given up hoping anyone would care. That's when Silas yanked her forward, shoved her down to her knees in the snow, her cry, silent, 'cause she can't make sound. It was worse than any scream, just air escaping body folding. Look at her, boys, on her knees already, trained her myself. The crowd roared. Some of 'em doubled over laughing. And me, I felt my hands curl into fists so tight my missing fingers lost 'em to a saw blade when I was 22. They ached like they were still there. Reckon a man can only carry so much silence before it breaks him. I pushed through the circle. Didn't say nothing at first. Just walked straight through, boots heavy, and the laughing died down to confused muttering. Stood right in front of Silas, looked him dead in his bloodshot eyes. "She ain't for sale," I said, voice low, steady. Silas blinked, like he couldn't believe someone had spoken. "The hell you say, Pike? I said she ain't for sale, because I'm claiming her. Right here, right now, she's my wife." The words came out before I'd even thought 'em through, but once they were in the air, they felt right, heavy, like a vow should be. And every man there knew, Elwood Pike don't speak unless he means it, and he don't mean nothing he won't die for. Silence spread through that crowd like ice cracking on the lake. You could hear the wind, hear somebody's horse stamping 50 yards off, hear Marjorie's breathing fast and shallow. I took off my coat, the heavy wool one Emma made me before she passed, last thing I had of hers, and I draped it over Marjorie's shoulders, covered her, protected her. Then I helped her stand, keeping myself between her and her daddy. Silas's face went from drunk red to rage purple. "You got no right. She's mine. Raised her 19 years on my own sweat. You raised her to sell her? I said. That ain't raising, that's stock keeping. And I'm taking her off your hands. For good. Marjorie, she had this little chalkboard hanging round her neck. How she talks to folks. Her hands were shaking so bad she could barely hold the chalk, but she wrote 2 words and held it up where I could see. Thank you. But before I could answer, before I could even nod, another voice cut through the frozen air like a saw blade through pine. Actually, Pike, she ain't yours to claim. I turned. Clyde Osgood stood there, camp foreman, the man who held every logger's wage in his fist like a king holds a scepter. And in his hand, he was waving a piece of paper with Silas's mark on it. Silas here owes me $60 in gambling debts. This girl's collateral, legal and proper. You want her, you buy her from me. The crowd shifted, uncertain now, 'cause crossing Silas was one thing. Crossing Osgood meant losing your job, your cabin, everything. And standing there in the snow, Marjorie trembling behind me in Emma's coat, I realized I hadn't just stepped into shame's circle, I'd stepped into a war I couldn't win alone. Beatrice Thorne ran the only boarding house in camp, widow of 50-some years with a spine straighter than any pine in the forest. When I showed up at her door with Marjorie wrapped in Emma's coat, the girl's bare feet leaving bloody prints in the snow, Beatrice took one look and said, "Get her inside 'fore these fools start a lynching." We sat Marjorie by the fire in Beatrice's parlor. The room smelled like cedar and old coffee, warm in a way I'd forgotten existed. Beatrice brought hot water, clean rags, a quilt that had seen better days but was soft as prayer. Wrapped it round Marjorie's shoulders while I knelt and started tending her feet. "Lord have mercy," Beatrice muttered, seeing the cuts. "Child's been walking on ice and rock." I cleaned the wounds gentle as I could, though my hands, scarred and missing 2 fingers, they weren't made for gentleness. Marjorie watched me the whole time, them brown eyes studying my face like she was trying to figure if this was real or just another kind of cruelty dressed up pretty. Her hands shook something fierce when she lifted that chalkboard. Wrote slow. "Why are you doing this?" I sat back on my heels. "Reckon 'cause it's the right thing. And I ain't done the right thing in a long while." She studied that answer, then wrote again. "You don't know me. Don't need to know you to see you deserve better in what you've been given." Beatrice brought soup. Thin stuff, just broth and carrots. But Marjorie ate like she hadn't seen food in days. Probably hadn't. I stayed by the window, watching the street. Already I could see men gathering in small groups, pointing toward the boarding house, talking low. "They ain't gonna let this go," Beatrice said quiet, standing beside me. "Osgood's got half this camp in his pocket. Other half's too scared to cross him." "I know." "You got $60, Elwood?" "Got about 15 to my name. Rest is tied up in equipment, my shack." "Then you got a problem. 'Cause Osgood ain't the forgiving type." I watched Marjorie finish her soup. She'd pulled that quilt tight around herself, and for the first time since I'd seen her, her shoulders weren't hunched in fear, just tired. Bone-deep tired. "She'd been through this before," I said. Wasn't a question. Beatrice nodded. "Been knowing what Silas does for years. We all have. Shame on every one of us for looking away." Marjorie's chalk scratched on slate. She held it up. "He's been selling me since I was 16. 3 years. Different men. Locked me in the root cellar after so I couldn't run." My hands curled into fists. The missing fingers ached like they always did when rage hit. 3 years, I said, voice rough as tree bark. "And nobody did nothin'." "Nobody wanted the trouble," Beatrice said, shame thick in her voice. "Silas is mean, but Osgood controls the work, the pay, the roof over our heads. Cross him, you starve." "Well," I said, "reckon I just crossed him in front of 50 witnesses." That's when we heard it. Voices outside, growing louder. I moved back to the window, and my gut went cold. Torches, 8, maybe 10 of them, bobbing in the darkness like angry fireflies. Men gathering in the street, and more coming. Could see Osgood in the center, talking pointing toward Beatrice's house. "They're comin'," Beatrice whispered. I checked the door, barred it, checked the windows, latched 'em. Then I went to Beatrice's late husband's gun cabinet, took out the old rifle. It was loaded. Good. Marjorie stood, quilt fallen from her shoulders. She wrote fast, hands shaken again. Don't fight them for me. Not worth dying. I looked at this girl, this young woman who'd been sold, beaten, silenced, and I saw Emma in her face, saw every person I'd failed to protect because I was too scared, too broken, too buried in my own grief. Maybe I ain't been worth much these past 15 years, I said, but standing for you, that's worth something. First worthwhile thing I've done since Emma died. A fist pounded on the door, hard, demanding. Then Osgood's voice, smooth as snake oil, called through the wood. Pike, this is your last chance. You got till dawn to produce $60 or hand over the girl. Otherwise, I got the law coming and you'll swing for kidnapping. The law. He'd bought himself a badge then, or faked one. I moved to the door, didn't open it, just called back. She ain't property, Osgood, and I ain't your dog to whistle at. Then you're a dead man. Silence fell. Heavy. Then I heard it. The sound that turns a man's blood to ice water. Torches being lit. More of 'em. The crowd was growing, and through a crack in the shutters, I saw something that made my chest tighten. Osgood was holding a rope. Not just any rope. A hanging rope. And he was smiling like the devil on Sunday. The mob didn't rush the door. They just waited. Circled the boarding house like wolves round a wounded elk, torches burning, breath steaming in the cold, boots stamping to keep warm. I could hear 'em through the walls, muttering, laughing, arguing among themselves about what they'd do when they got hold of me. Beatrice barred every window, every door. Marjorie sat by the dying fire, that chalkboard clutched to her chest like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to earth. And me, I stood at the front window with that old rifle, knowing full well one gun wouldn't stop 30 men if they decided to come through. You really gonna shoot 'em, Elwood? Beatrice asked. No judgment in her voice, just curiosity. First one through that door, yeah. After that, I shrugged. Reckon it won't matter much. Round about midnight, Osgood's voice carried through the walls like a preacher at a tent revival. Pike! Final offer! Send the girl out, pay the $60 or we're coming in! I cracked the window just enough to shout back. She ain't property, Osgood, and I ain't selling human flesh for your damn gambling debts. The mob roared, some angry, some excited. They wanted blood sport now. But then I said something I hadn't planned. Something that just came pouring out like 40 years of silence breaking all at once. Every one of you out there knows what Silas done to this girl. 3 years of selling her, locking her away, beating her when she didn't comply. And you watched. You knew. So if you want to call me criminal for giving her dignity, for standing between her and more years of that hell, then I reckon I'm guilty. But she ain't property. Not while I'm breathing. And any man who says different can step forward right now and say it to my face. Silence fell. Real silence. The kind that presses on your ears. Then, from the back of the mob, old Oswin Gray's voice rang out. Pike's right. Heads turned. Oswin stepped forward, one eye missing from a logging accident 20 years back, but his good eye blazing like a forge. We all knew what Silas was doing, looked the other way 'cause it was easier than facing it. Pike here's the only one with stones enough to stand up. I say we let him be. Some men nodded. A few lowered their torches. The mob was cracking. But Osgood, that snake, he wasn't done. Oswin, you old fool, you got no say here. This is about debt, about law. About power, you mean, Oswin shot back. About you keeping us all under your boot. The crowd shifted, uncertain now. And I saw it. The moment when it could have gone either way. Peace or violence. Justice or blood. Inside, Marjorie had moved beside me. She held up her chalkboard, and even in the dim light I could read it. No one's ever stood for me before. Something in my chest cracked open. Well, I said, voice rough, someone should have. Long time ago. She did something then that near about unmade me. Took my hand, the one with 2 missing fingers, the hand I'd always been ashamed of, and she pressed it to her chest, over her heart. Didn't write nothing. Didn't need to. Just held it there, and I felt her heartbeat through my palm. Fast, scared, but alive, fighting to stay alive. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt something besides emptiness. Felt needed. Felt like maybe I had a reason to keep breathing after all. That's when we heard the horse, hooves pounding hard on frozen ground. The crowd parted, and a rider came through, broad-shouldered man with a badge glinting in the torchlight. "Marshal's here!" somebody shouted, but I didn't recognize this marshal. We had a territorial lawman, name of Wheaton, decent enough fella. This one was younger, meaner looking, had eyes like a man who'd sell his own mother for the right price. He dismounted, walked straight to Osgood. They talked low, too low to hear through the walls, but I saw it clear as day. Saw Osgood slip him something. Money, probably, or a promise of it. The marshal turned toward the boarding house and called out, "Elwood Pike, I'm Marshal Kane, federal authority. You're harboring a debtor's collateral. By territorial law, you got two choices. Produce $60 by dawn or face kidnapping charges. Penalties hanging." Federal authority, federal. That meant this wasn't just camp law anymore. This was government. Beatrice whispered beside me, "Elwood, you got $60? "No, ma'am. Got 15, maybe 20 if I sell my tools." Then we got ourselves a real problem. I looked at Marjorie. Her face had gone pale, chalk white. She wrote fast, hands shaken. "Let me go. Save yourself." "No," I said. Simple as that. Already made my choice. But before the marshal could say more, before Osgood could grin his victory, a voice cut through the night, young, scared, but determined. "That marshal's lying. He ain't federal." Every head turned. A boy pushed through the crowd, maybe 10 years old, clutching something in his hands, a book, a ledger. "My name's Tommy," the boy shouted, voice cracking. "And I got proof Osgood's been stealing from all of us." The boy's face was dirty, half-starved, but fierce as a cornered wildcat. And in the torchlight, I saw something that made my blood stop cold. He had Silas Dalton's eyes. Same shape, same color. Silas had another child, a son he'd never claimed. The marshal's hand went to his gun, but the crowd was watching now. Too many eyes to silence a child in plain sight without showing his true colors. "Boy," Osgood snarled, stepping toward Tommy, "you don't know what you're holding." "I know exactly what I'm holding," Tommy shot back, voice cracking but holding firm. "Been cleaning your office for scraps of food 2 years now. Seen your books. You been skimming wages. Every logger here's been shorted $3 a week, and you been pocketing the difference." A rumble went through the crowd. Angry now, but not at me. At Osgood. Men started muttering, adding up numbers in their heads, realizing how much they'd been robbed. That's when Oswin Gray stepped forward, and I understood. The old one-eyed logger wasn't just defending me on principle. He'd been planning this. "Give me that ledger, son," Oswin said gentle. Tommy handed it over, and Oswin held it high for all to see. "I can't read much, but I know my numbers. Been tracking my wages against what Osgood pays out. He's been stealing from every man here, 2 years of it. That's over $3,000. The mob turned, fast as a wind shift. Torches swinging toward Osgood now instead of the boarding house. "That ledger's a lie." Osgood's voice cracked. He drew a pistol. "And anyone who believes that bastard child is fired. You hear me? Fired." But the marshal, this Marshal Kane, he hesitated. Eyes flicking between the ledger and Osgood, and I saw him calculating. He was hired muscle wearing a badge, not real law, and hired muscle knows when to cut and run. "Here's something else interesting," Oswin said, voice carrying over the crowd. "I sent word to the real territorial marshal 3 days back, Marshal Wheaton in Duluth. Told him something wasn't sitting right in this camp. He should be arriving. Oh, 'bout dawn." Osgood's face went from red to white. "You meddling old fool. Fool enough to see you coming a mile off," Oswin said. "Fool enough to plan ahead." The fake marshal backed toward his horse. Smart man, knowing when the game was up. But Osgood, rage does funny things to a man's sense. He raised that pistol, aimed it at the ledger, at Tommy, at the truth itself. "Nobody's taken what's mine." The shot never came. 3 loggers jumped him, wrestled that gun away. The crowd was chaos now, half rushing Osgood, others holding him back, voices shouting over each other. Beatrice grabbed my arm. "Now, Elwood, while they're distracted." I didn't need telling twice. Grabbed Marjorie's hand. She'd been standing frozen by the window, watching everything unfold. "We're leaving, out the back." She nodded, grabbed her chalkboard, and we ran. Through Beatrice's kitchen, out the rear door, into the snow-covered woods behind the boarding house. Tommy appeared beside us, breathless. "I'm coming with you." "Boy, this ain't your fight." "She's my sister," he shouted. I stopped dead. Marjorie stopped too. Even in the darkness, I saw the recognition dawn on her face. "Half-sister," Tommy corrected, panting for breath. "Silas is my father too. Had me with Beatrice 10 years back. Wouldn't claim me. Said I was bastard trash. But Marjorie," his voice broke, "she used to sneak me food when Silas would beat me. She can't talk, but she protected me. Now I'm protecting her." Marjorie's chalk came out, hands shaking fierce. "Thought you died. Father said you died." "He lied," Tommy whispered. "About everything." I looked at these 2 kids, and that's what they were, just kids carrying wounds no child should carry. And something in me shifted. This wasn't just about saving Marjorie anymore. It was about saving what was left of a family that bastard Silas had tried to destroy. "All right," I said. "We stick together, all 3 of us." That's when we heard it. Dogs, hound dogs baying in the night, and the sound cut through the cold like death's own voice. "Osgood keeps hunting dogs," Tommy whispered, face going pale. "They're tracking us." Marjorie wrote fast. "Where do we go?" I looked at the dark forest ahead, then back at the chaos behind, torchlight, shouting the sounds of men fighting. We had maybe 10 minutes before those dogs picked up our scent trail. "There's only one place Osgood won't follow," I said. "Old tribal grounds, 3 miles north through the pines. Chippewa territory. White men don't go there without permission." "Do we have permission?" Tommy asked, voice small. "No, but right now, I'd rather face tribal justice than Osgood's rope." The baying got closer. Somewhere behind us, men were yelling, organizing a search party. "Run," I said. And we did. 3 souls bound by nothing but survival and the thin hope that somewhere in this frozen world there was still such a thing as mercy. Behind us, I heard Osgood's voice rise above the chaos, screaming like a man possessed. "Find them! Burn Pike's shack! Burn everything he owns! And when you catch him, bring him back alive. I want him to watch what happens to that girl before he hangs." The dogs howled louder, and we ran deeper into the darkness, not knowing if we were running toward salvation or just a different kind of damnation. 3 miles through winter forest at night is like running through a grave. Can't see more than 10 feet ahead, even with the moon. Every step could be your last. Hidden root, frozen creek, bear den. My lungs burned like I'd swallowed coals, and Marjorie's feet were bleeding again through the rags I'd wrapped him in. Carried her on my back the last mile, while Tommy led the way. "Used to hide out here," the boy explained between gasps. "When Silas would get mean drunk, learned the paths by heart." Behind us, the dogs had gone quiet. Either we'd lost them, or they'd stopped at some invisible line we couldn't see. We finally stopped by a frozen stream, all 3 of us about to collapse. I set Marjorie down gentle as I could, but she still winced. Her feet were worse than before, torn open, bleeding fresh. "Damn it all," I muttered, ripping more strips from my shirt. "Should have grabbed boots from Beatrice's." I wrapped her feet again, hands shaking. Not from cold this time, from something else. She was so small, so breakable. And here I was, 40 years old, 2 fingers missing, heart hollowed out by grief, trying to be gentle for the first time in 15 years. When I finished, Marjorie took my hand, the scarred one, the broken one, and she squeezed it. Not grateful-like, not even tender really, just connected. Like saying, "I see you, I trust you." And God help me, I squeezed back. Tommy watched us, then asked quiet, "You really gonna marry her?" Or was that just words to stop the auction? I looked at Marjorie. Her brown eyes met mine in the moonlight, and I saw the question there too. I don't rightly know, I admitted. Said it 'cause it was the only way to claim her as mine, to protect her, but a vow's a vow, even one made in desperation. If she'll have me, I'll stand by it. Marjorie's chalk came out slow. She wrote, "Why would you want someone broken?" The words hit me like an axe to the chest. Broken, I said, voice rough. Girl, I'm the one who's broken. Been empty so long I forgot what full feels like. You ain't broken. You're just interrupted. And maybe together we can figure out how to keep going. She stared at that board for a long spell, then wrote one word. Together. Just that. But it carried more weight than any timber I'd ever hauled. That's when we heard footsteps. Not dogs. Deliberate, surrounding us. I stood quick, putting myself between Marjorie and whatever was coming. 5 figures stepped from the darkness. Chippewa hunters, faces painted, rifles ready. We're on your land, I said, hands up. Mean no disrespect. We're running from... The lead hunter raised his hand for silence. Old man, maybe 60, with eyes that had seen the world twice over and weren't impressed either time. We know, he said in clear English. We watched, saw the torches, heard the dogs, saw you protect the silent one. You gonna turn us in? I asked straight. He shook his head. Our law says those who protect the helpless earn protection in return. You may stay. The white men won't follow here. They fear us too much. Why help us? Tommy asked, voice small. The elder looked at Marjorie. 20 winters ago, white doctor saved my daughter from death sickness. Took no payment. I told him, one day I repay. This is that day. The silent one has suffered enough. Then he said something that stopped my heart. By our law, you can adopt her. Make it formal. No white court can break Chippewa adoption. She becomes your daughter in our way. She's protected by our tribe. I looked at Marjorie. You want that? Be part of a family again? Her hand shook as she wrote, tears streaming. Yes, please. Tommy stepped close. What about me? The elder smiled. First kind expression I'd seen all night. Family is who you choose, not just blood. The old man can claim both. Something in my chest, something that had been locked tight for 15 years. It cracked wide open. 2 kids, a family. After all this time alone, after all that emptiness, maybe I wasn't meant to die hollow after all. But Tommy's voice cut through the moment. Urgent. Elwood. Look. I turned. Through the trees, back toward camp. The sky glowed orange. Not torchlight, bigger, angrier. Fire, the elder said, face growing dark. They burned something. My shack, I whispered. Everything I own. The elder's jaw tightened. Not just your home. Look, 2 fires. My blood went cold. 2 fires meant 2 buildings. And I knew in my gut what the second one was. Beatrice's boarding house, I said. They're burning her out. The elder sent a runner to scout. He came back 10 minutes later, face grim. The foreman's men took the widow and the one-eyed man. Prisoners. They want you to trade yourself by dawn, or the old ones hang. Marjorie grabbed my arm, right and frantic. Don't go back. It's a trap. I know it is, I said, but I can't let Beatrice and Oswin hang for my choices. The elder spoke quiet. If you return, you will die. Maybe, I said, but dying for the right reason beats living for nothing, and I been living for nothing long enough. The elder studied me in the firelight his men had built. You would walk into certain death for 2 old people? They stood for me when nobody else would, I said. Ain't gonna let 'em hang for that. Marjorie was writing furious on her board, tears streaming. Please don't leave us. We just found you. Tommy grabbed my arm. There's gotta be another way. There ain't, I said gentle as I could. But maybe the real Marshal gets there in time. Maybe Oswin's plan works. The elder shook his head. Hope is not strategy. It's all I got. That's when we heard horses, fast, coming from the direction of camp. The Chippewa hunters raised their rifles, melting into the shadows. I stepped in front of Marjorie and Tommy, ready for whatever came next. But the rider who burst into the clearing wasn't Osgood's man. It was Oswin Gray himself, half fallen off his horse, face bloodied, breathing like a bellows. "Oswin!" I caught him as he stumbled. "What in hell? They had you prisoner." "They did," he gasped, grinning through split lips, "till about 20 minutes ago." "How'd you get free?" He sat heavy on a log, winced at his ribs. "Wasn't just me they grabbed. Took Beatrice too, like you heard. But what that runner didn't tell you, 'cause he didn't know, is that Beatrice Thorne ain't just some widow running a boarding house." "What do you mean?" Oswin's good eye gleamed. "Her late husband, he was territorial judge. She's got papers, legal documents, connections that go all the way to the governor's office. And she's been writing letters." "Letters?" 3 days worth. Soon as you claim that girl, Beatrice knew Osgood would play dirty. She wrote to every legal authority within 100 miles. Judges, marshals, even a newspaperman in Duluth. Told him about the wage theft, the fake badges, the whole rotten mess. My heart started beating faster. And? And the real Marshal Wheaton. He didn't just get Beatrice's letter. He got letters from 5 other people she'd contacted. "He's riding hard, Elwood. Should be at camp by dawn with federal witnesses." "But Osgood said—" "Osgood's in a panic." Oswin cut me off. "That's why he grabbed us. Thought he could force a trade before the real law showed up. But here's the beautiful part." He started laughing, which turned to coughing. "That boy Tommy's ledger. It ain't the only copy." I stared. What?" "I made 3 copies. Been at it for weeks, matching numbers, tracking every theft. One's with Tommy, one's buried in my cabin, and the third," he grinned wide, "Beatrice had it in her corset. They never thought to search an old woman proper. She slipped it to a logger's wife while they were dragging us around. That woman's riding to meet Wheaton right now." The elder stepped from the shadows. "The old ones planned well." "We had to," Oswin said. "Known Osgood's type my whole life. Men like him don't stop less you cut the legs out from under 'em legal-like." Marjorie held up her board. "How did you escape?" Oswin's face went serious. "Beatrice picked the lock with a hairpin. Woman's got talents nobody suspects. Then we split up. She's hiding with sympathetic folks in camp, and I rode here to tell you, don't surrender. Hold till dawn. Wheaton's coming, and when he does, Osgood's finished." Tommy's eyes went wide. "We can actually win this?" "If we live till sunrise," Oswin said. "Osgood knows he's running out of time. He'll try something desperate." The elder spoke. "Then you stay here. Our hunters will guard the approaches. If Osgood's men come, they will find only arrows." "No," I said. "Can't ask you to kill for us." "You do not ask. We offer. The Silent One is under our protection now, and we do not break our word." For the first time in hours, I felt something like hope. Real hope. Not the desperate kind, but the kind built on solid ground. I looked at Marjorie and Tommy. "You hear that? We got allies. We got evidence. We got the law coming. Maybe we actually get through this." Marjorie wrote, "Together." "Together," I echoed, but Oswin's face had gone grim, staring back toward camp. "Elwood, there's one more thing." "What?" "Silas. When I escaped, I heard him talking to Osgood. He made a deal." My gut clenched. "What kind of deal?" "He brings you in, dead or alive, and Osgood forgives his debt and gives him $50 on top." "Silas is hunting us?" Tommy's voice cracked. "His own kids?" "He don't see you as kids," Oswin said quiet. "Never did. Just property he never got full value for." The elder's face hardened. "How many men does he bring?" 6, maybe 8. Trackers? Men who know these woods." Through the trees we heard it, distant but getting closer. Dogs again. Different pack this time, fresh and hungry. And somewhere in that darkness, a father was coming to sell his children one last time. Silas came at dawn. We heard him before we saw him, his voice carrying through the pines, slurred and mean. "Marjorie, Tommy, your daddy's come to bring you home." Home. Like that word ever meant anything but a cage. The Chippewa hunters had formed a perimeter, but the elder raised his hand. Let him come. Let him reveal himself before all eyes. Silas stumbled into the clearing with 6 men behind him. Rough types, the kind who'd do anything for coin. He was carrying a rifle, barely keeping it steady, still drunk from the night before. His eyes found Marjorie first, then Tommy. Something flickered there. Recognition, maybe, or the ghost of whatever humanity he'd once had. But it died quick, buried under greed and rage. There you are, he said. Come on now. We're going back to camp, settle this proper. I stepped between him and the kids. You ain't taking 'em nowhere, Silas. That's so. He raised the rifle, pointed it at my chest. Osgood's offering good money for you, Pike. Said dead or alive, don't much matter to me which. You'd kill a man in front of your own children? They ain't children. They're debts I never got paid for. His finger moved to the trigger. Now step aside or I'll drop you where you stand and take 'em anyway. The Chippewa hunters raised their weapons, but Silas's men did the same. 8 guns against 5 bows and old rifles. The clearing had become a powder keg, one spark from exploding. That's when we heard it. Horses, many of them, coming fast from the south. Marshal Wheaton rode in first, badge gleaming in the early light, federal insignia clear on his coat. Behind him, 10 deputized men. Real law, finally. Everyone lower your weapons. Wheaton's voice carried like thunder. This ends now. Silas's rifle wavered. Marshal, these folks are harboring. I know exactly what's happening here, Dalton. Wheaton cut him off. He dismounted, strode into the clearing like he owned it. Got 3 copies of Osgood's ledger, got witness statements from 15 loggers, got testimony from a federal judge's widow, and I got a very interesting letter about you selling your own daughter. Silas's face went white. That's legal. She was collateral for a debt that don't exist, Wheaton said. Check the territorial records. Osgood's been operating an illegal gambling operation. Any debts incurred are void, which means you sold your daughter for nothing, and under territorial law, that's human trafficking. The words hit like a hammer. Human trafficking. Hanging offense. Silas dropped the rifle, stumbled back. No. I was just... She was mine to... She ain't property, Wheaton said. Never was, and you're under arrest. 2 deputies moved forward, but Silas bolted. Made it maybe 10 yards before he tripped, went down hard in the snow. They dragged him back, kicking and screaming about his rights, his property, his years of raising ungrateful brats. Wheaton turned to me. Elwood Pike? Yes, sir. You're free to go. All charges dropped. In fact, he pulled out a paper. I got a court order here. Emergency custody of both minors granted to you pending formal adoption proceedings. My heart near about stopped. Adoption? Judge reviewed the case based on Mrs. Thorne's letters, said any man willing to face down a mob for someone else's child deserves the chance to be a father. You want 'em, they're yours, legal and proper. I looked at Marjorie and Tommy, both staring at me with eyes full of hope and fear mixed together. Yeah, I said, voice rough. Yeah, I want 'em. The elder stepped forward. There is also matter of tribal law. We have performed adoption ceremony already. By our customs, these children are his family. Wheaton nodded. Federal treaty recognizes tribal adoptions. That makes it doubly legal. He handed me the papers. They're yours, Pike. No court in the territory can break it. Marjorie's chalk came out, hands shaken. We're really free? You're really free, Wheaton confirmed. She collapsed then, just dropped to her knees in the snow, and the tears came. 10 years of being silent, of being sold, of being treated like livestock, it all poured out in sobs that had no sound but shook her whole body. I knelt beside her, pulled her close. Tommy joined, wrapping his arms around us both, and for the first time in 15 years, I held a family in my arms. But Wheaton's voice cut through the moment. Pike, there's one more thing. I looked up. Osgood's barricaded himself in the camp office, got hostages, says he'll burn the whole place down before he surrenders. Wheaton's jaw was set. "We're going in at noon. Might get bloody. Thought you should know." Beatrice was still in that camp, still in danger, and somewhere in the distance, smoke was rising again. Noon's sun was breaking through the pines when we rode back into camp. Me, Wheaton, his deputies, and the Chippewa elder with two of his hunters, witnesses to make sure this ended legal. Marjorie and Tommy stayed behind with Oswin, safe. I'd made 'em promise. The camp looked like a war zone. My shack was nothing but black timber and ash. The boarding house stood, but barely, windows busted, door hanging off hinges. And in the center of the square, Osgood's office was barricaded, smoke leaking from under the door. Wheaton called out, "Osgood, it's over. We got your ledgers, got witnesses, got everything. Come out peaceful." Silence. Then Osgood's voice muffled, "You got nothing, and I got Beatrice Thorne in here. She burns with me if you come closer." My blood went cold, but Wheaton stayed calm. "Let the woman go, and we'll talk terms." "Terms?" Osgood laughed, high and wild. "I built this camp. Every cabin, every wage, every soul here answers to me. You think some fake ledgers and a dried-up widow's letters change that?" "The ledgers ain't fake," Wheaton said. "Got your handwriting, your signature, dates and amounts matching what the men remember." "You're finished, Osgood." A pause, then, "Maybe, but I ain't going alone." The elder leaned close to me. "The foreman has lost his mind. Cornered animals are most dangerous." I stepped forward against Wheaton's gesture to stay back. "Osgood, you want someone? Take me. Let Beatrice go, and I'll come in there." "You?" Osgood's laugh cracked. "You're the one who started this, claiming that girl, turning my own men against me." "Your men turned because you've been stealing from 'em for years," I shouted. "I just gave 'em reason to look at the truth." The office door cracked open. Just an inch. "Here's my truth, Pike. You take everything from a man, he's got nothing left to lose." That's when I saw movement at the side window. Beatrice's face, just for a second, and she was mouthing words. Not alone, help inside. Not alone. Someone was helping her. I kept talking loud, drawing Osgood's attention. "You're right. I did take something from you. Took away your power over that girl, over this camp. But that power was never yours to have, Osgood. You stole it, same way you stole wages." "I built this place," his voice broke, "from nothing, and they owe me. Every last one of them owes me." "They don't owe you their dignity," I said. "They don't owe you their daughters, and they sure as hell don't owe you their silence." The door flew open, but it wasn't Osgood who came out first. It was the fake Marshal Kane, the hired gun, dragging Beatrice with one arm, gun to her head, and behind him, Osgood followed, wild-eyed, a torch in his hand. "Back away," Kane shouted, "or she dies." Wheaton's men raised rifles, but they couldn't shoot, not with Beatrice in the way. That's when I saw it. Beatrice's hand behind her back. She was holding something, flashing it where only I could see. A hairpin, the same one she'd used to pick the lock. Our eyes met. She nodded, just barely. "Osgood," I said loud, "you talk about what folks owe you, but what about what you owe them? Marshal Kane here, he ain't federal law, is he?" Osgood's face twitched. "Shut up, Pike. You hired him, bought him a badge, put him in a uniform, made him look official, all to scare folks into line. I said shut up. And that ain't even the worst of it." I looked at Kane. Tell him who you really are." Kane's gun wavered, just for a second. "He's your brother," I said, guessing but watching Osgood's face confirm it. "Ain't he? Your own blood, helping you rob these people?" The crowd, loggers who'd gathered at a distance, they started muttering. Wheaton's eyes narrowed. "That true, Osgood?" Wheaton asked. "You brought in family to run your scheme?" Osgood's face crumpled. "He was broke. I gave him work, gave him purpose." "You gave him a badge to terrorize folks with," I shot back. That's when Beatrice moved, drove that hairpin straight into Kane's gun hand. He howled, dropped the pistol, and she twisted away fast as a woman half her age. Wheaton's men were on Kane in seconds. Osgood stumbled back, torch still burning in his hand, and for a second I thought he'd set the whole building ablaze. But he just stood there, broken, watching his brother get shackled. It weren't supposed to end like this, Osgood whispered. I just, I just wanted what was mine. Nothing was yours, Wheaton said, taking the torch from his hand gentle-like. You understand that now? Osgood's knees buckled. Two deputies caught him, started leading him away. Beatrice walked to me, rubbing her wrist where Kane had gripped her. Figured out he was the brother about an hour ago. They talk alike when they're scared. You all right? I'm tougher than I look, Elwood Pike. She smiled, tired but fierce. Now where's those children of yours? Safe. Waiting for... A cry went up from the crowd. Someone was pointing toward the tree line. Silas Dalton had escaped the deputies, and he was running straight for where we'd left Marjorie and Tommy. I ran faster than I'd ever run in my life. 40 years old, lungs burning like I'd swallowed hot coals, but fear pushed me harder than any pain could slow me down. Behind me, Wheaton and his men were mountain horses, but I was closer, cutting through the forest on foot, knowing every route and rise from our flight just hours before. Silas had maybe a 2-minute head start, but he was drunk, stumbling through snow that grabbed at his boots, and I was running on something stronger than whiskey, the need to protect what was finally mine. Broke through the clearing just as Silas reached it. He had a knife, must have grabbed it off a deputy when they weren't watching, and he was lurching toward where Marjorie and Tommy sat with Oswin, all three frozen like deer caught in lamplight. You ain't taking my property, Silas screamed, voice cracking, spit flying. You hear me, Pike? They're mine. Mine to sell, mine to keep, mine to... I hit him like a fallen timber. We went down hard, rolling in the snow, and that knife went skittering across the ice. Got on top of him, pinned his arms, fist raised to beat some sense into a man who'd never had any to begin with. But I stopped, fist shaking in the air, every muscle tight. 'Cause beneath me, Silas wasn't fighting anymore. He was crying, broken, pathetic sobbing like a child who'd lost his favorite toy. They're all I got left, he choked out. Emma, she left me, took my heart when she died, and these kids, they're all that's left of her. I just wanted... You wanted to punish him for her leaving, I said, voice hard as iron. Wanted to hurt him 'cause you were hurtin'. That ain't love, Silas. That's just poison dressed up as family. Wheaton and his men thundered into the clearing, guns drawn, horses breathing steam. But I waved him off, stood up slow, left Silas curled in the snow like something pitiful. Marjorie had her chalkboard out. Her hands were shaking something fierce, but she wrote careful, deliberate. Then she walked over, barefoot still, wrapped in blankets, and held it up. Not for me, for Silas. I forgive you, but I'm not yours anymore. 7 words, simple as prayer. And they hit Silas harder than any fist could have. He read 'em, lips moving silent, and something in him broke deeper than bone. Started crying harder, reaching for her like a drowning man reaching for shore. But she stepped back, stayed just out of reach. I'm sorry, he sobbed. Emma, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Wheaton's men hauled him up, started leading him away. He didn't fight, just kept muttering apologies to a dead woman who couldn't hear, couldn't forgive, couldn't do nothing but haunt him for whatever years he had left. The elder stepped forward then, studied Marjorie for a long spell. His old eyes seeing something the rest of us couldn't. Then he did what I didn't expect. Took out a beaded necklace from inside his coat. Beautiful thing. Looked ancient, every bead carved with symbols I couldn't read. In our tradition, he said, voice carrying like wind through pines, when a person shows courage to forgive the unforgivable, they receive the courage keeper. You wear this, you carry our tribe's respect forever. You are Chippewa now, in spirit and in honor, and we protect our own, always. He placed it around her neck, and Marjorie touched the beads like they were made of starlight. Tears streaming silent down her face, but smiling too. First real smile I'd seen from her. Tommy stood beside his sister, small hand finding hers. What happens to us now? His voice was small, scared, hopeful all at once. I looked at these 2 kids, my kids now, legal and proper and chosen, and I felt something rise up in my chest that I hadn't felt since the day I married Emma. Not just purpose, not just duty, but love, the kind that makes you want to see every tomorrow just to watch 'em grow. Now, I said, voice catching, now we go home. But your shack burned down, Tommy said, practical as always. Then we build a new one, together, and this time, it'll be big enough for a real family. Big enough for three. Wheaton walked over, boots crunching snow, and handed me a paper, official-looking thing, all stamps and signatures. One more thing, Pike. Judge signed off on full adoption, both children, legal in every territory and state from here to the Atlantic. Nobody can break it. Nobody can take 'em from you. I stared at that paper till the words blurred. Legal, mine, family. And there's this, Wheaton continued, pulling out another document. Osgood had near $3,000 in his safe, stolen wages. Judge says half goes back to the workers in equal shares, half goes to you, compensation for your burned property and your trouble. Should be enough to build that house, and then some. $1,500. I'd never seen that kind of money in my whole life. Never imagined seeing it. There's one more thing, Beatrice said, walking up with Oswin leaning on her arm, both of 'em grinning like they knew a secret. Loggers took a vote while you were chasing Silas, unanimous, every man. They want you as new camp foreman. Said any man who'd stand up to Osgood the way you did is the kind of man they'd follow into hell if he asked. I ain't no foreman, I protested, shaking my head. I'm just a timberman. I know trees and axes, not leadership. You're the man who chose right when everyone else chose easy, Oswin said, that one good eye gleaming. You're the man who stood alone till others found courage to stand with you. That's leadership, son. The only kind that matters. The sun had broken full now, pouring through the pines like liquid gold, turning the whole clearing into something out of a dream. The kind of light that makes you believe in new starts, in second chances, in the possibility that maybe, just maybe, broken things can be made whole again. Marjorie took my hand. The scarred one, the broken one, the one missing two fingers. And Tommy took the other. And we stood there in that golden light, three people who'd been alone, broken, discarded like trash, now bound together into something neither money nor law could ever truly measure. Family. Marjorie pulled out her chalk one more time, wrote slow and careful, making sure every letter was clear. Then she held it up high for everyone gathered. Wheaton, Beatrice, Oswin, the Chippewa elder, even some loggers who'd followed to see how it ended. To read, he saved us. But we saved him too. And standing there, my children's hands in mine, I realized she'd written the plain truth. I'd spent 15 years dead inside, convinced loneliness was my punishment for losing Emma and our boy. Convinced I didn't deserve nothing but empty rooms and silent nights. But these kids, this girl who couldn't speak and this boy nobody had claimed, they'd given me back what I thought was buried 6 feet under with my wife. A reason to keep breathing. A reason to build instead of just endure. A reason to love again, even when it scared me worse than any mob or rope ever could. The elder placed his weathered hand on my shoulder. The sunrise marks new beginning. Old sorrows do not vanish. They are part of who you become. But new joys grow beside them, and this is balance. This is the way life should be lived. I looked down at Marjorie and Tommy. You two ready to go home? Start building something that's ours? Marjorie wrote just one word this time. Yes. Tommy nodded, tears and smile mixed together on his face. Can I help build? I'm strong for my age. Course you can, I said. Gonna need all the help I can get. And maybe, I looked at Marjorie, maybe you can help design it. Choose where the windows go, how big the kitchen should be. Make it a home, not just a shack. She nodded fierce, already writing ideas on her board. As we started walking back toward camp, toward our new life, I heard Beatrice whisper to Oswin, "Never thought I'd see the day Elwood Pike smiled again. Figured that part of him died with Emma." Life's got a funny way, Oswin replied, voice soft. Breaks you down to nothing but splinters and ash, then builds you back up from better timber, stronger timber, the kind that don't break easy next time the storm comes. Behind us, the Chippewa hunters were melting back into the forest like morning mist. The elder raised his hand in farewell, palm out, fingers spread, the old sign of peace and partin'. I raised mine back the same way, and he nodded once. A promise made without words, They'd be watchin', protectin', rememberin'. Ahead of us, the camp was stirrin' to new life. Men comin' out of cabins, ready to rebuild what had been broken, ready to start fresh under honest leadership, fair wages, and the kind of law that protected people instead of crushing them. And somewhere in all that new day, I swear I heard Emma's voice. Not real, just memory, just the echo of 15 years past, whispering what she used to tell me when the work got hard and I wanted to quit. Love don't die, Elwood. It just changes shape. It waits for you to be ready to hold it again. I was ready now. Finally ready. We all were. The snow crunched under our feet as we walked, 3 sets of footprints side by side, heading toward whatever tomorrow would bring. And for the first time since I could remember, I wasn't afraid of it. I was looking forward to it. I'm 65 now, and my bones creak louder than the floorboards in this house we built. It's a good house, solid pine timber, wide porch facing east so we could watch the sunrise together. Me and Marjorie used to sit right here every morning, her with her coffee and chalkboard, me with my thoughts and the silence we'd both grown comfortable with. She's been gone 2 years come March. Fever took her quick, 3 days from healthy to gone. Merciful, I suppose, though mercy don't make the empty chair any less empty, but we had 22 years together. Good years. Full years. The kind where you wake up grateful more often than not. Marjorie never did get her voice back. Not the speaking kind. Doctors said the trauma had locked it away someplace even she couldn't reach. But she didn't need words. That chalkboard said everything that mattered. And on our last day, when she was burning up with fever and knew what was coming, she wrote me one final message. Took her 10 minutes, hands shaking fierce, but she got it down. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. I keep that board on the mantle now. Can't bring myself to erase it. Tommy's doing well. Got himself a wife. Good woman, strong like Beatrice was. And they got 4 young ones running through these woods where we once ran for our lives. Ain't that something? The same forest that nearly swallowed us whole is now full of laughter and games of hide and seek. Tommy named his oldest daughter Marjorie, middle name's Emma, said it was only right, naming her after the 2 women who taught him what love looks like. He visits every Sunday, brings the whole family. The kids call me Grandpa, though there ain't a drop of shared blood between us. But that's the point, ain't it? Family ain't built on blood. It's built on who stands with you when the mob comes. Who holds your hand when the world says you ain't worth holding? Who sees you, really sees you, when everyone else is looking away? I learned something that winter of '89, something that stayed with me every day since. Learned it standing in the snow, watching a father sell his daughter like livestock. Learned it carrying that girl through the forest with her feet bleeding and her hope all but dead. Learned it in a Chippewa clearing when an elder told me family is who you choose, not who you're born to. What I learned is this. Dignity can't be bought, can't be sold, can't be stripped away by any auction or mob or cruel law. It can only be recognized or ignored. And when you choose to recognize it, when you choose to see another person's worth even when the whole world's calling them worthless, you don't just save them, you save yourself too. 'Cause I was dead, friends. Make no mistake about that. Been dead inside for 15 years, burying myself right alongside Emma and our boy. I convinced myself that loneliness was what I deserved, that emptiness was just the price of lovin' and losin'. But Marjorie and Tommy, they didn't just need savin', they saved me right back. Gave me a reason to wake up. Gave me a reason to build something instead of just watching things fall apart. Now maybe you're listening to this and thinking, that's a fine story, old man, but it don't apply to me. Maybe you ain't never been sold by your own kin. Maybe you ain't never been stripped naked in the snow while a crowd laughed. And I hope to God you haven't. But maybe you know what it feels like to be invisible, to be looked through instead of looked at, to wonder if anyone would stand for you if the torches came, to carry shame that ain't even yours, just something the world decided to pile on your shoulders. If that's you, if you've ever felt that way, I'm telling you now, you're worth it, worth the fight, worth the stand. Worth every ounce of courage it takes to choose dignity over despair. And somewhere out there, there's someone who'll see it, someone who'll recognize what the world tried to ignore. And if you're on the other side, if you've ever had the chance to be that person for someone else, the one who stands when everyone else walks away, don't miss it. Don't let fear or convenience or what will people think rob you of that moment. 'Cause that choice, that stand, it echoes, louder than you'll ever know, longer than you'll ever see. I think about Osgood sometimes. Died in prison 5 years into his sentence. Never admitted what he'd done was wrong, right up to the end. And Silas, he got 10 years, served 7 before his liver gave out. Heard he spent his last days writing letters to Marjorie that she never read. Apologies that came too late to matter. But I also think about Oswin and Beatrice. Both gone now, but they lived good lives. Died knowing they'd stood for something when it counted. That's all any of us can hope for, really. To stand for something, to mean something, to leave the world a little less cruel than we found it. Justice moves slow sometimes, seems silent, seems like it ain't coming at all. But I've lived long enough to know. It's got a memory longer than any grudge, and it always finds its way home. Maybe not in the way we expect, maybe not in the time we want, but it comes. This here's Elwood Pike, signing off from a porch in northern Minnesota, watching the sun come up over the pines one more time. If this story touched you, if it reminded you what matters, I'd be honored to know where you're listening from. Maybe you got a story like this too. Maybe you've been that lonely soul needing someone to see you. Maybe you've been the one who stood. Either way, you ain't alone. None of us are. Not really. We're all just walking each other home. May your dignity carry you through the darkest winters. May you always find someone who sees you when the world goes dark. And may you be that someone for another soul who needs it. That's all I got to say. Until we meet again.